I want to start with a scenario that I think is going to feel uncomfortably familiar to a lot of you listening. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've had lunch, you're sitting at your desk trying to power through an email, and then suddenly
Yeah.
the lights just dim in your brain.
Oh, the classic afternoon slump, that brain fog.
Exactly. It's not just, I'm a little tired. It's this real gut-level urge to just put your head on the desk.
Right.
Or maybe you get snappy with a coworker.
Right, or you find yourself just staring into the pantry for something sweet, but you're not even hungry. And we always have a script for that, don't we? We blame ourselves.
We do. We say, I have no willpower. Or, ugh, I'm just getting old. Or, I must not have slept well.
Yeah, we treat our body like it's this mysterious black box that just sort of malfunctions at random.
But what if it's not random? What if that brain fog, that irritation, what if it's a very specific, very loud distress signal about one single metric in your blood?
And that's what we're getting into today.
We're doing a deep dive into Glucose Revolution by Jessie Inchauspé. And I have to say, the headline stat in this book, it just stopped me in my tracks. She claims 88% of Americans have dysregulated blood sugar.
It's a staggering number. It really is.
But wait a minute, 88%? Does that mean 88% of us are diabetic?
Yeah.
Because that just doesn't sound right.
No, and that is the crucial point, that 88%, that's people who are not diabetic according to all the standard medical tests.
Okay.
But they're still experiencing these extreme glucose spikes and crashes every single day. They're on a roller coaster that's, wrecking their hormones, their skin, their mood, their long-term health.
But no one's talking to them about it because they're not clinically diabetic.
Exactly. They get a clean bill of health. The medical definition of a normal fasting glucose is anything up to 100 milligrams per deciliter.
Right.
But Inchauspé makes the point that normal just means not dying yet. It doesn't mean optimal. The data suggests that health issues actually start creeping in at around 85 milli-GDL. So you have this huge gap where people are healthy on paper, but they're physically browning like toast on the inside.
Okay. That phrase, browning like toast, that's vivid and frankly, a little terrifying. We're definitely going to unpack what that means.
We have to.
But before we get into the biology of how we're cooking ourselves, we need to understand where this all comes from.
Yeah.
Because the author, Jessie Inchauspé, she's not just guessing here. She's a biochemist who basically hacked her own body.
Right. And her whole motivation, which I think is so interesting, it wasn't about weight loss. It was about trauma.
Really?
Yeah. When she was 19, she was hiking in Hawaii. She jumped off a waterfall and it went wrong. It went very wrong. She landed badly and just shattered her T2 vertebrae.
They can't even imagine.
It was catastrophic. I mean, major surgery, metal rods fused to her spine, the whole thing. But the physical recovery, that wasn't the end of it. Afterwards, she developed this intense depersonalization, derealization disorder.
Okay, explain that. Is that like the brain fog we were talking about, but worse?
It's like the extreme pathological version of it. She felt completely disconnected from reality, like a stranger in her own body. I mean, she was functioning, but she wasn't there.
Wow.
So she was desperate to figure out what was going on. That led her to a job at 23andMe in Silicon Valley and eventually to a continuous glucose monitor. A CGM.
Right, those are the little discs you see people wearing on their arms now.
Exactly. They were designed for diabetics, but she wore one as part of a company experiment on non-diabetics. And that's when she saw it. She saw the code behind the matrix, so to speak.
She started seeing a direct link between her mental state and that number on her phone.
A direct correlation. Which brings us to what you called the nachos experiment, which I think is so fascinating.
Yes, because it shows it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat it.
This was her big light bulb moment. So she ate a plate of nachos one Monday night. Huge glucose spike, then a massive crash, and immediately, the depersonalization, the brain fog, it all came rushing back. But then she ate the exact same nachos on a Sunday.
And the result?
No spike, no crash, no brain fog.
Okay, hold on. Same person, same food, but a totally different biological reaction. Why?
Because on Sunday, she'd been active all day, she'd been out hiking, and this gives us our first major biological takeaway. Muscles are glucose sponges.
So her muscles basically soaked up the glucose before it could spike her blood.
Precisely. See, when your muscles are at rest, they need insulin to help them, unlock the door to let glucose in. But when muscles are contracting, when you're walking or squatting or hiking, they can pull glucose directly from the bloodstream. No insulin needed, they just drink it up.
So on Sunday, the nachos just got burned for fuel immediately.
It did. They never had a chance to sit in her blood and wreak havoc.
That's incredibly empowering. It suggests we're not just passive victims of our food, but to really get this, we need to understand what glucose actually is. The book breaks it down using plants, and I think we need to clear this up. We hear carbs, we think bread and pasta.
Right. But basically all plants are made of carbs. It feels like magic, really. I mean, plants take carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil, energy from the sun, and through photosynthesis, they create a molecule called glucose.
That's their energy, their building block.
It's everything to them. Think of glucose molecules like individual Lego bricks. The plant uses these bricks to build different things.
Okay.
So if it strings the bricks together in a long, easy-to-break chain, that's starch. That's how a plant stores energy in its roots. You know, potatoes, carrots, yams.
So starch is just a chain of glucose.
A simple chain. And when we eat it, our digestion just snaps those links instantly and boom, a flood of glucose hits our blood. But the plant also uses those same Lego bricks to build its skeleton. The stems, the leaves, the structure, and they link the glucose bricks together again, but with a different kind of bond, a much, much stronger one. And that is fiber.
And this is the part that just blew my mind. Fiber's made of glucose, just like starches.
It is, but, and this is the absolute critical but, we humans do not have the enzyme to break that fiber bond. We just don't have the scissors for it.
So it passes right through us.
It passes through completely intact. It never, ever turns into glucose in your blood, even though it's made of it.
That distinction is so important. Starch turns to sugar, fiber stays fiber. But what about the sweet stuff, like fruit?
Ah, that's where we meet the other family members. Plants make fructose to make fruit sweet, basically to attract animals to come eat them and spread their seeds.
Clever.
And then there's sucrose, which is just table sugar. Sucrose is actually a double molecule. It's one glucose stuck to one fructose.
So anytime we eat a plant, we're navigating this mix of starch, fiber, fructose.
Exactly. And the big problem is that our modern diet has completely, totally altered those natural ratios.
Well, let's talk about what happens when those ratios are off. You mentioned the spike. Inchauspé defines a spike as any jump of more than 30 mg/dL after you eat. Why is that specific number so dangerous?
Because the body craves stability. It wants a flat line. When you force this massive surge of energy into the system all at once, you trigger 3 distinct biological crises. The first one is all about how we make energy.
The mitochondria.
Yes. Every single cell in your body has these tiny power plants called mitochondria. Their job is to turn glucose into cellular energy, into ATP. The book uses this analogy of a steam train. The mitochondria are the workers shoveling coal into the furnace.
And the coal is the glucose.
Coal is the glucose. So in a steady state, you're shoveling coal at this nice rhythmic pace. The train moves smoothly. But a glucose spike, that's like a dump truck backing up and unloading a mountain of coal into the engine room all at once.
The whole system just chokes.
It chokes, it gets completely overwhelmed, and it shuts down. And when mitochondria shut down under that kind of stress, they start releasing these toxic byproducts called free radicals.
We hear about free radicals all the time, in skincare ads, but what do they actually do inside our bodies?
They're like tiny wrecking balls. I mean, they damage your DNA, they poke holes in your cell membranes, they trigger massive inflammation. This is oxidative stress. It is literally rusting from the inside out.
And that's the brain fog, right?
100%. When your brain's neurons are inflamed and rusting, they can't fire properly. That signal delay, that's the fog.
Okay, so first we're rusting. That's bad enough. But then you mentioned the toaster effect. This was the part that made me put down the cookie I was eating.
It's startling, isn't it? The process is called glycation, and it is the exact same chemical reaction that happens when you put bread in a toaster. The heat makes the sugars react with the proteins, and that's what turns the bread brown and crispy.
And you're saying this happens inside our bodies?
It does. When there's too much glucose floating around in your blood, it literally starts bumping into proteins and damaging them. It glycates them. It cooks them.
And just like you can't untoast bread,
you cannot unglycate a protein. Once it's cooked, and this process is a primary driver of aging. When collagen in your skin gets glycated, it gets brittle and snaps. That's a wrinkle. When proteins in your joints get glycated, they get stiff. In your eyes, it's cataracts.
So a glucose spike is literally an acceleration of the aging process.
Yes. And this is where we have to talk about the invisible villain from the intro. Fructose.
Right. The book makes a really big deal about this, how a bowl of rice and a cupcake might look the same on a glucose monitor.
But the cupcake is so much worse.
Right.
Because the CGM, the monitor, it only sees glucose molecules. It's totally blind to fructose. So if you eat rice, which is all starch, you see a glucose spike. Fine. But if you eat a cupcake, which is sucrose, you see the spike from the glucose, half of that sugar. But you don't see the fructose spike at all.
And why is that hidden fructose spike such a problem?
Because fructose causes glycation, that browning, that cooking process, 10 times faster than glucose. 10 times faster! So you could look at your graph and think, oh, that cupcake spike wasn't so bad, I'm fine. But you're missing the fact that you're cooking your insides significantly faster than if you'd just eaten the rice.
That is really sobering. Okay, so we're resting, we're cooking, and finally the weight issue, the thing everyone wants to know about. The book describes it as a game of Tetris.
It's a game of survival, really. Your body knows high glucose is toxic, so it wants it out of the blood immediately. Your pancreas releases a hormone called insulin to do the job.
Insulin is the Tetris player moving the blocks around.
Exactly. And insulin grabs the glucose and looks for a place to put it. It's got 3 storage bins. First, the liver. Second, your muscles.
But those are small bins, right?
Very small.
Yeah.
The liver can only hold about 100 grams. Your muscles, maybe 400. Once those little shelves are full, insulin has no choice but to use the 3rd bin, your fat cells.
The infinite overflow lot.
And it is unlimited. They can expand pretty much indefinitely.
Yeah.
But here is the crucial, critical piece for anyone trying to lose weight. Insulin is a one-way valve.
What do you mean by that?
As long as your insulin levels are high, which they are whenever you have a spike, it locks the doors on your fat cells. You can put energy in, but you cannot get energy out.
So if I'm spiking my blood sugar all day with snacks and sugary drinks, my insulin is always high, and I'm physically incapable of burning fat.
Biologically incapable. You are stuck in storage mode. To burn fat, your insulin levels have to fall. But if you're on that glucose roller coaster all day, they never get a chance.
And let me guess, fructose is the bad guy here too.
The worst. Remember how muscles can just drink up glucose? Well, they cannot use fructose. They don't have the right machinery for it. So when you eat sugar, that fructose has basically nowhere to go but your liver.
Oh no.
And when the liver gets overwhelmed, it has one option. Turn that fructose directly into fat. This is the primary driver of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is just skyrocketing right now.
So we have this amazing biological system that evolved to handle wild plants.
Mm.
You know, roots, fibers, fruits, maybe some honey once in a blue moon. And now we're just throwing these highly processed fiber strip sugar bombs at it.
We've stripped off all the armor. In nature, sugar and starch are almost always clothed in fiber. A beet, a peach, a stalk of wheat. They have these fiber matrices that slow everything down.
Right.
But when we process food, we remove that fiber to make things shelf-stable and smooth. We turn a slow-release capsule into an IV drip.
There was that example with the strawberry that really clicked for me.
Yeah. If you take a fresh strawberry, freeze it, and then thaw it, it turns to mush. That's because the ice crystals broke that fiber structure. Even that tiny change makes the sugar hit your blood faster.
Now imagine blending it into a smoothie.
Exactly. You've completely pulverized the fiber. You're just drinking a sugar spike.
And on top of all that, we have the dopamine loop. Our brains are just hardwired to want this stuff.
We are fighting millions of years of evolution. A sweet taste used to mean safe energy and survival. So our brains reward us with a hit of dopamine.
Like that mouse experiment.
It's terrifying. They gave mice a lever that would stimulate dopamine neurons in their brain. The mice stopped eating, stopped drinking, stopped mating. They just pressed the lever until they were on the verge of death.
That feels uncomfortably close to how I feel around a bag of gummy bears.
It's the same biological mechanism. We're really up against ancient programming.
So let's pivot to the solution. Because the point of this deep dive isn't to make everyone terrified of fruit or to say you can never eat a cookie again. The book is actually very anti-diet culture.
It is. Inchauspé is so clear about this. It is not about deprivation. It's about flattening the curve. If you can just reduce the height of those peaks and the depth of those valleys, you reduce the insulin, you stop the cooking, you clear the fog.
And we can do that without cutting out carbs completely.
Absolutely. By using these simple hacks that change how the body processes the food. We already talked about movement using your muscles as a sponge. That's huge. Just a 10-minute walk after a meal can cut a spike dramatically.
What's another big one?
The order you eat your food in, this is probably the easiest one to implement today. If you have a meal with vegetables, protein, fat, and carbs, eat the veggies first.
Why does the order matter? It all ends up in the same stomach.
It does, but not at the same time. If you eat the vegetables first, that fiber lands in your stomach and small intestine and creates this sort of viscous mesh like a net.
You're building a safety net.
You are. And then when you eat the starches and sugars afterwards, they get tangled up in that net. Their absorption slows way, way down. The spike is flattened.
Same meal, same calories, but a totally different hormonal response just by changing the sequence.
It seems too simple to be true, but the biology makes perfect sense. You're just manually putting the armor back on the food.
So to pull this all together,
Mm-hmm.
that black box of our body, it's not actually broken, it's just overwhelmed.
Exactly. It's like we're trying to run a steam engine on jet fuel and then wondering why it's overheating and breaking down.
We're not failing, we're just managing a really complex chemical reaction without the instruction manual.
And now we have the manual. It's not about willpower, it's about physics, it's about molecular Lego bricks.
And realizing you have control. You can have the cookie, but maybe you eat a handful of nuts first, or you go for a brisk walk after. You can put yourself back in the driver's seat.
Yes, exactly.
I want to leave our listeners with that thought about aging again, because it really did stick with me. We spend so much time and money trying to fix our outsides, creams and treatments and all that. But if aging is really just cooking on the inside, that glycation process, and we know that sweet foods cook us 10 times faster.
It kind of changes the whole calculation, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
The question isn't, is this cookie fattening anymore? It's, is this cookie worth the accelerated cooking time? And maybe, if you go for that walk afterwards, the answer can still be yes. But at least now, you know what it costs.
And you know the hack to lower the price.
Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.